Welcome to the Fabulous Fifties and Beyond. I'm Jim Pollard, your co-host with my wife, Jeanetta. Today we have a program that is of interest to a lot of people who are 50 and older. We're going to be talking about Alzheimer's disease, and we have as our guest today Dr. Jesse Wallace. So you stay tuned and we'll be right back.
And he'd say, go with what you got. Start from where you are. Give it your best shot. Keep reaching for that star. Get in the race, keep your own pace, keep moving and never stop. Just go, go with what you got.
Welcome back. We want to talk about a disease and a medical situation today that's very prominent in older people, even though we have seen that it affects some younger people, and I think it's pretty heartbreaking when it does affect younger people. But our guest today is Dr. Jesse Wallace, and Dr. Wallace is, are you the director of the Four Rivers Medical Research Center, or is it, what is your official title, I guess?
Well, I'm a practicing internist here in Paducah.
Right.
And I work at Four Rivers Clinical Research as one of the investigators for various conditions, one of which is the Alzheimer's studies.
Okay, and so we want to talk about that today. Some of the things that we do want to talk about is what it is and what it is not. We just attended a meeting with the doctor and another doctor from Abbott Laboratories, I think she was, wasn't she?
Yes.
Talking about one of the drugs that they're in clinical trial there. And it was a real interesting and informative session for me, I got to tell you, as we talked about the different things. But I think one of those ways that we can start is just by saying, what is Alzheimer's disease?
Alzheimer's is one of the types of dementia. Dementia is a broad category that describes a set of problems that a lot of older people have. They have memory losses, usually for more recent events. Many times the distant memories are maintained. They lose the ability to do things that they ordinarily would be able to, such as taking care of themselves, bathing, washing, feeding themselves. Also lose executive functions such as balancing checkbooks, paying bills on time, and taking care of their personal matters. These changes start out very subtle, and over a period of time, usually months and even years, they progress. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia, and is caused by changes in the brain. Certain proteins accumulate in the brain tissue and basically choke out the normal function of the brain. Once again, it starts off very slow, and then it progresses to the point of being very severe.
When do we need to be afraid for ourselves? Like, you know, if you lose your car keys a lot or something like, I mean, what are the signs that we would look for in ourselves or someone else?
Well, as we mature, we all have what we call small mistakes. You know, we take the wrong turn sometimes, we lose things, we forgot to pay a bill, and that's just normal situations because life is very complicated. But if it bothers our daily lives, such as we leave the fire on, the stove, that would be a dangerous thing. If you lose something important, if you keep forgetting important things like birthdays or important events in your life, and you suspect there may be some changes going on.
Now, could you go to a doctor and be examined and be diagnosed with that Alzheimer's? Or?
Well, the usual onset of attention for this is someone brings up to the doctor or healthcare provider that their loved one is not doing as well as they want to be. And they usually bring a set of symptoms such as memory changes, they get lost, they wander off. The evaluation in the office usually starts out with examining the patient, both asking questions, performing a physical examination, and then doing some studies like a CAT scan or MRI. Also, you do blood studies to make sure there's no underlying cause of the problem.
What would an MRI show up? I mean, what are some things you look for as you do an MRI?
Well, if your major complaint is confusion or loss of memory or not able to do things like you should, then the things you look for obviously are things like infection or brain tumor, a buildup of abnormal pressure in the brain, a series of strokes can also cause those symptoms.
So you're actually looking for things that may be causing it that aren't Alzheimer's, as well as looking for whether it is Alzheimer's.
Right. The typical findings you see on MRI or CAT scan will be shrinkage of the brain. As we all get older, our brains start to shrink somewhat. That's not necessarily bad, but it can affect our reasoning, it can affect our memory, it can affect our activities. But if that becomes a hazard to ourselves or greatly interferes with our daily living, then that can be abnormal.
Now, my mother, who was your patient for many years, she couldn't tell the difference between reality and actually what was going on. If she saw it snowing on TV, it might be 80 degrees in the house or outside, but she still thought that it was snowing.
Right.
Is that part of?
That can be part of the dementia process. It's called misinterpretation of a real event. They also can start hallucinating, would be one form of some dementias as well. Hallucinations is having the people on the TV talking to you specifically as opposed to just entertainment.
Right.
Or you see people moving about the room, they're not really there.
So that's part. Well, you know, as I said, when we were at this meeting, I was really impressed at the answers that we got. And I think one of the things that we talked about was that all dementia is not Alzheimer's.
That's right.
What are some of the other types of dementia, or how do you recognize the difference?
Well, the only way you 100% diagnose Alzheimer's is through a brain biopsy, and that's pretty difficult to do, and most people won't allow you to do it. So you have a range of possibilities. Certain possibilities will be vitamin deficiencies, low thyroid, a series of strokes. There's some conditions such as Parkinson's disease, and some reactions to medications that can cause dementia-like problems. And so you go through your checklist and rule them out.
I thought it was interesting, one of the things that you brought up was that there are other diseases or medical problems that can make you think that you have Alzheimer's. I think one of the things you mentioned was a kidney infection.
Well, people who are elderly are susceptible to changes in their body situations. For example, if someone is elderly and they have a kidney infection or an underlying inflammatory condition, that can cause a stress on the system and make them be confused or restless, and that can act like a dementia.
And I guess that's the reason that you have to go through the total, what do you call it, workup of a patient.
Right. You need a thorough evaluation because many of those conditions that would be underlying can become very subtle and can build up over a period of months or even years. And for the caregivers who see the patient regularly, they may not notice a great change.
You know, I guess that's like you see somebody every day, and as you say, the changes are so gradual, you just don't really notice them, do you?
That's correct.
But somebody that sees them once every 6 months or once every 3 months or once a year, they can see changes.
That's right.
What are some of the things that we can do to stay healthy and not to get this?
Well, I think those are pretty straightforward. The most important thing is controlling your blood pressure and cholesterol. Anything that has to do with the circulation, you have to take care of. Controlling diabetes is very important. Eating well, certainly avoid smoking and all products with caffeine and nicotine if possible. In addition, taking vitamins, a good healthy lifestyle is important. Also keeping your mind active, doing puzzles, interacting with your neighbors, friends, church work, volunteer work, and physically being active is very important.
I have heard that just contact with people, you know, your neighbors and friends, it really does help you. And I was kind of surprised at that.
Yes, indeed. Social networking is very important as we mature. The thing you don't want to do is become isolated and just sort of stay in the house all the time, don't interact with other people. That is sure to make your brain do worse.
I try to stay busy with the computer. I guess that's one of the things today, that if a person can get involved with the computer to a certain extent, would that help them trying to learn new things? I get frustrated trying to learn new things on that computer.
Yeah. Well, that's important too, but there's not very personal interaction on the computer. I think people need to get out of the house and do things with other people. That is good for their brain, good for their body, and good for their soul.
Well, that's good, because that's good for this show, because we tell people that we believe that there's a wealth of knowledge, ability, and talent in the over 50 age group that's going to waste
Right.
because nobody's taking advantage of it. And so we try to tell our people and audience out there, don't wait to be asked, go volunteer.
That's exactly right.
And there's so many things that people can do. It's just endless.
Well, it's good for both sides of the picture.
Right.
People who are in their 50s and 60s and older have a tremendous amount of experience. And they have different work experiences, different life experiences, travel experiences. And you can always find someone who can benefit from that. Partly entertainment, partly educational, but also just sharing that. It's very important for both parts.
Well, that's one of the things that we try to encourage our audience to do. We realize that most of our audience is probably over 50, since that's the group that we aim at. But we have younger people that come up and say, I saw your show, I like this, I like that, you know.
Right.
But not only that, I think that some of the younger people watch our show because of their parents or their grandparents, and they can learn things that they can help them with also in trying to get across some of the messages and some of the things that are available and are going on today. Well, I got a list here, so I just think that I would like to refer to it again. And as we said, in the second half of our show, we're going to be talking about some of the new directions in the treatment. And one of the things that we want to talk about is the clinical test that's going on at Four Rivers, which you're a part of, and that there are openings there. And so we want, when we get there, we're going to talk about it and have up on the board how they can get in touch with them to do that. But I think one of the things that we talked about before we started the show, that she and I talk about all the time, is the effect that not only this disease, but any disease has on the caregiver.
Yes, indeed.
It affects them, and if they're not careful, they're going to be worse off than the one they're giving the care to, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. That's right.
So what are some things they need to try to do?
Well, I think if a major condition such as Alzheimer's is the main focus of their activity, they need to learn as much as possible about not only the disease, but also the medications that are used to treat it, and really become a team member with the healthcare providers for that. Also, the caregivers need to realize they need some time for themselves periodically, not only for sleep, but for personal matters, and just to get away.
Talking about that, we're about to run out this segment, but a story that I was watching TV yesterday, and they had 3 sets of quads and their parents on that show, and they asked one of the parents, says, how do you share the day and the night? He says, there is no night with 4 babies.
Exactly right.
It's just 24/7 is what it is. But we're going to get into the program there at Four Rivers and some of the other things, some of the cures, some of the drug trials, some of the different things, because I know there's a lot of budgets out there now, and it's a major emphasis of research, the Alzheimer's disease is now. But we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about that. So you stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
And he'd say, go with what you got. Start from where you are. Give it your best shot. Keep reaching for that star. Get in the race. Keep your own pace. Keep moving and never stop. Just go. Go with what you got.
Welcome back. We want to talk about now, Dr. Wallace, some of the, there really is no cure though, is there? It's
That's correct.
It's kind of it's one of these diseases. Well, can you stop it in its tracks wherever it is?
Well, dementia, and particularly Alzheimer's, is a slowly progressive disease. There's no cure because we've not ironed out exactly the exact details of why it happens. But the treatments are to help control the symptoms and to help level out the progressive decline, so that if we can get some stability in their symptoms, keep them as functional and active and mentally aware as possible, this helps the caregiver management, also increases the quality of life for the patient.
Okay, so when you say level out, it's like if they're going this way, you try to stop that steady climb. And,
decline.
It won't be a decline, but it'll just...
Well, if you there's several things we measure in people who have Alzheimer's, and that is mostly a decline. if you're
in
functioning
their,
at
in their
this level,
functions. Right.
then if you measure the activities of daily living, such as can they bathe themselves, can they feed themselves, can they do the things they're supposed to, then you measure those sequentially every 4 months, 6 months, or a year. Usually there's a steady decline. And so if we can level that out, then people are doing better for doing longer.
Can they relearn any of the things that they lose? Have we gone that far in the research?
Some, depends upon the patient itself. Sometimes it's the training, sometimes it's educational level, sometimes it's medications.
Because I know in stroke patient treatment, they relearn things
Yes.
a lot of times.
Well, a stroke usually affects one area of the brain. Alzheimer's affects more than one area of the brain. And so it can affect that specifically.
Okay, well, that's it. Let's talk about, did you have something?
Well, we were talking about the caregivers.
Yes.
There are support groups that they can join, aren't there?
Yes, indeed. The Alzheimer's Association here in Paducah is very active and has regular meetings, and they are a good source of help, information, and I believe they have some people there who are well experienced in that. There's other caregiver places here in town they can use for temporary relief, and there's home health agencies they can check out. I think the doctor's office would be a good resource. Also, the social service offices of both hospitals have a list of resources.
And isn't there such a thing as adult daycare
Yes.
where they could take them at least maybe 1 or 2 days a week?
Right, there's adult daycare, there's a senior citizen, there's different things that the people can use, because the more they get involved with social activities, the better they do.
And the better the caregiver too.
Oh, absolutely.
Does too.
All right, the clinical trial program at Four Rivers, do you want to give us a brief synopsis? Because I've been in a clinical trial before, not for Alzheimer's, but but I know that.
You sure?
Yeah, I think my mind's there. I remember that. But I know it's number one, it's free, right?
Yes.
Number two, they get complete physical and workup and all. You want to explain
Yes.
all that? Go ahead.
Okay, Four Rivers is an organization here in town that I've been involved with for many years. It is specifically designed to test not only new medications, but new uses of existing medications. We're doing quite a bit of work with Alzheimer's. We're also doing work with, say, prostate enlargement in men, with diabetes and neuropathy as a variety of things we use. Specifically with Alzheimer's, a clinical trial is a test that in this case uses a new medication that's being developed for the treatment of Alzheimer's. It mimics the chemicals in the brain that help with memory and the flow of information in the brain. So the patient is usually screened by phone through a phone call. The person at Four Rivers will go over with the caregiver what the patient's medications are, what the conditions are, and then if they pass through that set of questions, they can come to the office and do a memory screen. There's some blood testing, sometimes there's scans or x-rays, and then we go through there. Once that all is set up, there's a list of medications that we use for treatment of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then the patients are seen regularly, sometime once a week, sometime once a month, and there's different measures that we use to determine if the medication is working.
Aricept, didn't that used to be almost the only?
Yes.
But now you have different ones.
Right, there's Aricept and there's 3 others that are used for Alzheimer's. They're not as good as we would like them to be, because
Right.
we want something that's very good at slowing down the progression and hopefully improving Alzheimer's patients, so we're looking for new things.
Well, and I know, and I guess, because I heard you say so, and it would be for me too, being involved in the research, that's like being on the cutting edge to a certain extent, and can
Right.
be exciting as you see things begin to break and happen.
Right, in the years I worked at Four Rivers, we've helped develop quite a few medications that are now on the market for various situations, including lung conditions, diabetes, neuropathy, that sort of thing. So we're always evolving in new things, and since Alzheimer's is more and more common, we're looking forward to developing new strategies for that.
Go ahead.
I was impressed when we went to that meeting the other day how influential they say that this area is for the research that y'all are doing.
Yes, indeed. Well, there's a lot of old folks here in West Kentucky.
That's what we were hearing. This
Yes.
this gentleman came we had a group of people come from out of town for the disaster relief, and he said they'd never seen so many widows in a place, and I didn't realize that we were.
Yeah, well, for people in West Kentucky live longer than really in a group than any part of Kentucky.
Really?
Tougher people, I
Yeah,
guess.
they just live longer, and also the people who live longer have various conditions like dementia or Alzheimer's. So this is a good place to do that research. And Four Rivers has been here for many, many years and has a nationally recognized reputation for doing research, not only in Alzheimer's but other conditions.
That's very good.
Well, I think we have a board where they can put the address and telephone number, and I put Karen's name up there also. I guess
Yes.
she's the one that they need to contact first, right?
Yes. Well, you just call Four Rivers, the phone number, and tell them you're interested in, say, the Alzheimer's study or the prostate study or the diabetes study, and they will route you to the correct coordinator.
Okay. Now, on the Alzheimer's study, you already have to be on a drug to get into this program or not?
Well, there's different
Levels?
studies.
Okay, different studies.
So I think right now is being aware of what your loved one is having problems with, and calling up the people at Four Rivers and say, okay, here's the situation, here's what my loved one is taking, let's talk about this.
And I guess with Alzheimer's, it is mostly the caregiver or loved one who calls for the one who goes into the program, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
There's a big percentage, isn't it? Like when people reach 80, isn't there a huge number of them that you say will probably have Alzheimer's?
I think the statistics are by the time they're 80 or 85, probably 45 to 50% of people will have some form of Alzheimer's.
Gives us a lot to look forward to, doesn't it?
Well, the best treatment is prevention.
Right. And let's talk about prevention again. You talked about that earlier. Let's do that again because we're interested in prevention. You know, you say diet?
A good healthy diet is extremely important.
Yeah.
Okay, lots of fruits, vegetables. Very popular are the antioxidants.
Right.
Those foods, I tell people to eat dark foods. Dark green, dark yellow, dark orange, dark red foods. Okay. Stay away from fatty foods when you can. And obviously control blood pressure, sugar, cholesterol, and no smoking.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
Blueberries are
Oh, absolutely.
high, yeah.
She eats
darker the
blueberries
better.
all the time. Yeah, she eats a lot
I'm
of
trying to
blueberries.
start eating a half a cup a day.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, of course, we get into, I guess, the dark, and would you say the dark leafy vegetables are the good ones?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, all vegetables are good, but
Just all of them.
as far as the antioxidants are concerned, the darker colors have the more antioxidants.
And so that's a good key to go by.
Yes.
Just dark. That's interesting.
As
I
fresh
was-
as possible.
Yeah, as fresh as possible.
Yes.
I was just reading something about using the smaller size vegetables and the brighter colors.
Yes. That's right. It's very important.
Really. Well, that's interesting. She does. We try to stay up. You know, at our age, we need to know what's going on
right.
and what's happening out there. And we, you know, she works crossword puzzles all the time. We work puzzles and different things like that. Try to keep our brain involved. We're involved in church. I think it's one thing I heard the other day that people who are involved, even in their church, it's good for them and their mind and activity because it's that social activity you're talking about.
Yes, and everybody needs to be doing something. Everybody wants to be wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And so the interaction is very important. There have been cultures and different studies here in the United States that have shown people who are active, who after they retire learn new things. They learn to dance, they learn languages, they go to new things. Those people do a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one thing that helped my dad. Now, my dad died early after retirement, but he retired early and he was pretty sick. But he had a hobby of making jewelry, coin jewelry.
Yes.
And he'd get up, he felt like it, he'd making that jewelry, and in shells. We lived in Florida, and my dad was what we call a profound sheller. He made his own dip thing, and he'd go out there. He'd get up there early in the morning, stay for 3 or 4 hours collecting shells.
That's very important.
And he loved it. And I said, and he was a tool and die maker and a machinist, so a very precision type individual.
Right.
So he didn't just dump the shells in a lamp. He placed every one of them so they was in the right position and everything. But that was his way, you know. And
Yes.
he had his mind. Both mom and dad both had their mind when they died full, you know. But that was good.
But exercise is a very important part of it too, isn't it?
Right, both physical and mental. You know,
Yeah,
it's
because-
obviously use it or lose it.
Yeah, our statement for our show. Well, I hope we've covered this, and again, we want to talk about the Alzheimer's Association here in Paducah and McCracken
Yes.
County, because I'm going to show this here. This is just one of their pieces of literature, and Four Rivers has this also, because I got
Yes.
this from Four Rivers. But they have a lot of good literature that's available where people can get their hands on it. And I guess the doctor's offices who treat this disease also have reference a lot of materials, don't they?
Oh yes, indeed, because like I said, the more the caregivers can learn, the better. And the more information they have, the more they can network with other caregivers, other people. You go to Alzheimer's meeting, you can share notes and information with other people there.
I think that groups are so important in that so many people who are out there, caregivers, they hear about all this stuff, but it doesn't make them realize that they're not the only one going through with it until they get in an actual group and start sharing, do they?
Right. It makes you a better caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some times away, if you learn new things, if you have better coping skills, if you're more innovative in taking care of your loved one, you become a better caregiver.
Mm-hmm. And you last longer too.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
Well, that's important, and that's what we try to tell our people. Well, Dr. Wallace, we've really enjoyed having you with us today, and I hope our audience, and I know they've learned a lot from it. We want to again remind the people about the research that's going on right now, that they do have openings,
Yes.
and that they'll be glad to talk to them over the phone about it and see if they qualify and can become a part of the program. Again, there's no cost, and they give you the physical, the medicines, and everything is all part of it. And believe it or not, our time is about up. It goes quick.
Yes.
I tell everybody when we come,
Yeah.
we just go sit around the kitchen table and talk about
Yes.
whatever your specialty is what we want to do. But again, we appreciate you being with us today. And for you and our audience, we want to remind you also that we're here 3 times a week on Channel 2. We're also streamed on the internet. And you can go to the WKCTC website and find out how to find us on the internet. I think they're going to put up our new blog address on the internet where you can find that also. You can find us there. We're going to be having different articles there, different things that might be of interest to you also. So we encourage you to go check out our blog and to also check us out on the internet. This is a fantastic world we live in today when you can do all of this and see all of this. But as Dr. Wallace said, you know, we try to close our show with the expression of use it or lose it. And that's what we want to remind you to do, to use it or lose it. And we want to thank you again for watching and invite you to be back next time.
Can't see as well as I used to. Can't run as far or as fast. Sometimes I think that the old me is becoming exactly that. But when I start thinking of all I don't have, that's when I tell poor me. Beethoven was 50 and deaf as a post when he wrote his 9th Symphony.